If your metro don't trust you, I'm gonna give you money. This summer I want it back. What is up, guys? Welcome to another video, and today it's been a while, since I talked about Need for Speed. I haven't played Payback in a while. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Need for Speed is still my little baby. I do like my Need for Speed stuff, just because I haven't been uploading Payback doesn't mean like I've completely forgot about the series and, like the fact that it is like one of my favorite series still. But I've still got a few things to talk about in this video specifically, and that's where does Need for Speed go from here on out. I've obviously done my Need for Speed 2019 wishlist stuff in the form of Tokyo Nights, and maybe a bit like closer to where, the time, maybe a bit later this year, I'll do a bit more of that. But for now, I kind of want to talk about what Need for Speed actually has to do in the next installment to actually, like, impress us. And, like, if there's actually anything they can do to kind of win back a lot of the hardcore fan base, which has almost given up on Need for Speed, because that's very much the case. Sales figures will always be good for Need for Speed. I don't care what anyone says. Need for Speed's gonna die! It's not gonna die. It's like a household name. It's like FIFA. It's gonna sell. And so I have no doubt in my mind that, the next game will sell. But I kind of want to talk about more about the actual game, what the game needs to do, and what they can do to kind of win over the hardcore fan base. Because I've been thinking about this, and we in the last Drivecast we did last night, we were talking about this a lot, and I've got a lot of things to share. So let's go ahead and talk about what does Need for Speed need to do in 2019 to go ahead and win back. So it's no surprise that the last two games were, still one of them ones. 2015, but from me at least, was my personal favourite in the three Ghost games that they've made, being Rivals 2015 and Payback. I played a lot of 2015, and I enjoyed what I played of 2015. The tuning on the cars was absolutely awesome, and it added hours and hours of playtime. The story, although it was very, very cheesy and very, very cliche and very, very predictable, actually made sense, unlike Payback. The main character in Payback could have killed you, like, literally, like, 30 minutes into the game. Why didn't she just blow you up? To this day, that is like Mythbusters crowned. Where you at, boy? It was obviously the return of customization in Need for Speed, and in many ways it had a few more things which Payback didn't. For example, track width was a thing which wasn't present in, Payback. A few vinyls and stuff, like very, very nitpicky stuff, they're still not in Payback. Like Rachel's 350Z, the little dragon thing, it's not in Payback, nor do I think is Kaze's Blacklist vinyl. So I just want to point that out. There's a few things here and there that they actually had more of. And in my opinion, and by a lot of other people's opinion, to be honest, it's pretty much fact at this point, it looks better than Payback. The reflections always being at night in the wetness. I'm not going to sit here and say that I would want the next game to be always at night, but the fact it's wet and shit, and it's always at night, it makes the game look better. That's why companies always show off their games at E3 in the wet, or at least having like a bit of rain on the floor to show off the reflections. And the reason why I'm talking about 2015 in correlation to the next game is because they can take a lot from 2015 of what they did well with 2015 into the next game. Urban car culture needs to be the center focus from the Need for Speed series, not only for the next game, but for the foreseeable future. I have been campaigning against off-roading ever since it was announced with Need for Speed Payback. It doesn't need to be there. It's not Need for Speed. Need for Speed needs to take a step back and start removing shit. And when I say removing shit, I mean refining the experience. It's very evident that Need for Speed tried to be the Crew and Horizon with the Blast game, with the addition of the class system that we've seen in the original The Crew, and obviously The Crew 2 recently come out, with the addition of the off-roading and the open map, very similar to Horizon. What Need for Speed need to do is analyze their core audience, which is urban car culture, customization, and illegal street racing, and target that and give the game a focus. It's pretty evident to me they have tried to kind of put their eggs in too many baskets, and unfortunately they don't have enough eggs. They got 6 instead of 12 when they went to the supermarket, and they can't put them in every single basket. If, in my opinion, the game needs to focus on road, not dirt, not whatever. It needs to focus on road racing, illegal road racing, similar to how 2015 was, similar to how The Run was, similar to how Undercover, Most Wanted, those types of games. And they need to focus on the grittiness. The story is nice, and I would love to see another 2015-esque story. Doesn't have to be hardcore. I'm not expecting a Last of Us story from Need for Speed, but something to get us through the single player and a multiplayer which is going to keep me engaged, very much like 2015 did. Weirdly enough, 2015's multiplayer was really, really good. Like, it actually really did keep me engaged, and this is coming from someone who, admittedly, there is a lot of problems with Speedless. Speedless was done better in 2015 than Payback, in my opinion, just because, you know, of the way it was laid out. So you've got race, drift, and mixed, and obviously one car is taken into each. So you're not relying on a loadout or anything, you're relying on your one individual car, and I just preferred that system to how it is in Payback, because in Payback, it can lead to some very unfair environments. In a mixed Speedless, if you go in with an RSR, you're not going to win the actual Speedless because you can't drift in an RSR, and then on the opposite end, if you take a Huracan, well, you're not going to win in a Huracan because you can't race in a drift Huracan. So it's one of those things that was probably balanced, and they probably didn't even mean to do that. I was probably by complete accident. But going back to what I said about taking stuff out, I don't know why people are so scared to do this currently. It's one of those things, obviously they've spent time in the off-roading, but for how I see it, it just doesn't need to be there. The upgrade system, take it out, go back to how it was in 2015. It was perfect in 2015. Maybe make the upgrades a bit more expensive in terms of in-game cash, but the actual system and how it worked, in my opinion, was much better. Maybe add perks for races, you know, that would be pretty cool, but the actual upgrade system needs to stay exactly how it was in that game. The idea of making your car your own, I really like the idea of having 5 cars in a garage. That was really, really cool. But at the same time, I do think there should be a bit more of a bit less of a limit on that. My answer to that would be make the garages cost like 300,000 credits, in-game credits. That way, you know, when people go ahead and have the decision of buying a new car or buying a new garage to fit more cars in, I wouldn't say 300k is a grind. I'd say that's relatively easy. If you play the game, that gives you something to reach for, and I think that makes 100% sense. Instead of paying for garages at what, like 20k? That's like what, one race? Give money worth. It's been a problem with every single racing game which has come out in the past 5 years. Horizon has that problem. The Crew 2 has that problem. I have 3 million sat there. On the Crew 2, there's cars that I've used once and never used again. I don't know why money is not given worth, and I'm not saying make it really, really hard to get money, but at the same time, things like garages should be really expensive. Multiplayer focus is something which needs to be, you know, a huge center point of the next game. Ranked needs to be fixed. Need for Speed can be competitive. It was competitive in 2015 for me, and it was great. I want to see non-contact modes. I want to see a ranked, you know, mode which actually works. So when I win games, I don't get deranked, because that still happens in Payback, and it's broken, and it's just ridiculous. And then I want to see party modes. Give me the undercover cops and robbers mode, which I've talked about many, many times on the channel. Make the multiplayer a core focus. Free burn challenges from Burnout, put those in, you know, but at the same time, don't just copy a lot of things from other games. Add your own twist, Ghost, because at the same time as it would be to add all these features that we've seen previously, what the Need for Speed series really needs is some innovation, because let's be honest, the racing game franchise hasn't really had that. I'd argue Horizon and the Crew 2 are not necessarily innovating, but definitely adding something fresh which we haven't seen before, in the form of the Crew adding Fast Fav, which is something which we haven't seen, which is again it's a bit gimmicky, but it's new. And Horizon, you know, it's again not necessarily innovating, but in terms of the fresh open world in the seasons, something which we haven't seen in a very long time done in this certain way. So you know, from that aspect, I've got to say, add stuff which is fresh and new and exciting, because nothing in Payback is any of those things. Well, not at least like, what, like 8 months after launch now? Physics need to be heavily sorted. At this point, I'm pretty sure it would be too late to completely rehaul the physics. But yeah, like, why does it feel so destructive and so heavy? When I'm racing on Need for Speed, feels like I'm carrying a truck. Feels like I'm not, it doesn't feel like I'm carrying a $4 million hypercar in the Regera. It feels like I'm literally driving a truck. Brake to drift has been a thing which the community has moaned about for so long. And I don't know why it hasn't been fixed yet, and I do hope it is something which, you know, they do address. I hope the drifting actually takes skill, and it's not just a press of a button, because although it is arcade, it shouldn't be, you know, like I'm going to an actual, like, in real life arcade, and I'm pressing a button, and it just drifts. Like the old, what is it, the Outrun games? Because that's what it feels like. I haven't given up in Ghost. I know, I see the potential they have, and I think the mistake with the last game is they genuinely thought they had something when they didn't. With 2015, they really did have something. I am a genuine believer in Ghost that they can do something with this series and really bring it back to the kind of the peak they had with 2015. Because let's not forget, the Need for Speed 2015 teaser trailer back in E3 caught Rivals' views. Rivals had, I think, like 3 million views, something like that. 2015 got that in a week. Rivals had that in 2 years. Let's not front and act like 2015 was not a huge game. Let's not act like Need for Speed isn't the biggest racing franchise, period. They have a lot to prove, and they're understaffed. They're half the size of Ivory Tower, probably not given that much backing by EA, but that's just me speculating. They've got a lot to prove, and I am still on Ghost's side, and I believe even with all of Payback's flaws, I still have hope for the next game, that it's going to be something amazing. And all I have to say on that note is let's wait and see to see what they really have in store. I'm going to do a few more videos, you know, obviously over the next few months, you know, leading up to the next game, but we've got a while to wait, so don't expect too much on Need for Speed in the foreseeable future. But I just wanted to get this video out because I had a lot to say in the kind of like aftermath of Drivecast last night. And so I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to go ahead and hit the like, subscribe for more Need for Speed content. I will see you guys in the next one. You guys have been awesome. Stay safe and peace.